This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Rafael of the Wealthy Expat. Rafael, how's it going?
I'm amazing. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Rafael, got to tell you, you're probably one of the most requested guests that we have and someone that I've been looking forward to connecting with for a long time. So thanks for doing this.
That's awesome. I didn't know I was requested a lot, so that makes me very happy and excited to talk to your audience.
Yeah, thank you, man. I mean, you're coming up on 100K on YouTube, which is a huge milestone. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. It's been 2 years of videos, of a lot of work, and a lot of self-experience. I've been to around 75 countries at this point, making videos about each country that I go to, and I'm not stopping until I hit 100, 120. So it'll definitely keep going.
I have a question for you. So you tell people your name's Rafael. Was there ever a choice about if you were gonna stay anonymous, or was it always gonna be like fully out there?
I debated to stay anonymous because some topics that I talk about might trigger the wrong kind of people, might trigger the elites of the world, and they might have, you never know. You might be a target for some people. And I thought about that. Or I could just be extremely open and say, here's all the passports I have, here's all the bank accounts I have, here's my tax returns. And I can be as open as possible and then protect myself that way. Obviously, I still keep some things very private. I don't tell people all the residencies I have. Maybe I hint
Mm-hmm.
at them and I don't tell them all the passports I have. But I think it's good to be open because in this industry, offshore, moving to other places, a lot of people don't really say the truth. And for example, let's say we're talking about where to live in a new city. And a lot of people think, oh, the whole world is cheaper than the United States. Well, if somebody's telling you, yeah, you can get an apartment for 500 bucks a month somewhere, and they're saying they live there, maybe that's not true. So I decided to just actually make a video of the apartment and show you the apartment, and it's not 500 bucks, it's 5,000 bucks. So I'd rather just be more open than more private.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think a lot of people appreciate the transparency. I think you're bringing something different to the investment migration market and the offshore market. How do you think about it in terms of doing things differently and standing out in the industry?
Definitely, because there's two sides of this industry. There's one side, the service providers. So you have the companies that have no face, like Henley Global, right? They're just a citizenship by investment, residency by investment boutique firm. They help a couple of people every year, or I should say hundreds of people, get citizenship, but you never know who the owner is. You never know who they really are. You just know the salespeople. And there's other people that just make videos about traveling the world and living abroad, but they don't go deep into strategy and they don't
Mhm.
actually provide any boutique service. There's actually only three people, counting me, that do both. So they show the reality and they provide a boutique service. But then when it comes to providing a good, very fast boutique service, that's where most of them really suck. And I've had experience because I myself, I bought a second, well, I've gotten two second passports at this point. I have three now. And I've worked with many of these people. And I noticed that once you become a client, everything just kind of goes downhill. So my goal was provide really good content, educate people, which is the main goal. I always tell people just learn about it and then figure it out.
Mhm.
And then also provide a good experience. And that's what we're trying to do.
I have a question that you might make me cut this out, but there was a Nomad Capitalist video where he said, "Yeah, there's me and two other guys," and I was wondering if you saw that video and if that made you smirk.
Yeah, he says that I'm the guy that just bought a second passport and decided he's a YouTuber. Yeah, he he says that a lot. He's like, yeah, I'm not just a guy that bought a second passport and now built a YouTube channel. I honestly don't care. I think he's done really good for the industry, and I really think Nomad Capital has been a good powerhouse in this offshore
Good
industry because
force
it
for the
has shown,
industry. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, 600,000 people have learned about it from him and have been introduced to this world through the book and so on. So if it wasn't for him, probably Wealthy Expat wouldn't exist just because there wouldn't be as many people interested in this topic. So I'm grateful to what he's built and what he's done in the past, regardless of if we're competitors, if he insults me or anything.
No, it's good to have a little friendly rivalry in the industry. I
Yeah.
mean, there's still not enough guys, I feel. I mean, we're doing our part with Latin America and providing information about Latin America, but um, there's definitely a lot of information out there that really hasn't overly been written about that could be covered, whether it be birth tourism or this and that. Like, there's still a lot of niches to explore, I think.
Yeah, I think the barrier to entry is a little bit higher than anything else because before I used to be a drop shipper. I used to sell products from China, sell them in the US. And I made videos about that. And then 10,000 other people and their grandmas started doing videos about drop shipping. And it was so easy to make a video about drop shipping. You could just fake your results and say, oh, yeah, I sell 10,000 products a month. That's easy. You can very easily fake it or actually do it and then teach people. But in this industry, you need to live somewhere else. And if you fake that you live somewhere else, people will know. And people that are experienced, they will say, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You need to, for example, in the passport industry, you need to know a lot about passports. Today I was researching into African passports, and I just spent like
Hmm.
3 hours
Hmm.
researching different passports, different ways, residency by investment. So you really have to spend a lot of time and travel to a lot of countries in order to get this experience. You, for example, in Latin America, I don't know as much as you do because I just haven't spent that much time in Latin America as you have. I'm Latino and I'm not really, let's say, connected to that part of the world just because I lived 18 years in that part of the world. But you have a much better outlook on, let's say, explaining Colombian residency than I do just because you spent more time there. And that's the issue with this industry, that the barrier to entry is so high that the people that are providing information, most of them, are high quality, which is good in some ways.
Yeah, dude, I think we're aligned in a lot of ways. I'm also the type of guy that, it'll be 2 in the morning and I'm just researching Mauritius residency options, and I'm like, oh, I think I gotta go to bed. Like, like that's enough time looking at the Seychelles.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the times I've talked to people and they told me like, dude, you got to stop talking about passports. So you have to just it's too much. Some people can't take it. I agree.
So, for some context, Rafael, my audience is majority Americans and then Canadians and Europeans who are looking to move to Latin America and just interested in the expat and digital nomad lifestyle in general. What do you think about Latin America makes it sort of distinct from the residency and citizenship opportunities? Because Latin America definitely has some distinct characteristics, no?
For sure, it's more welcoming. It's a lot easier to move to. The time zone is the same for an American. I'm I'm technically American. I was born in Puerto Rico. I renounced U.S. citizenship. I now have two other citizenships, and I have residency in Latin America. So definitely, Latin America is a good transition
Hmm.
from the US because it's not that scary as moving to the Middle East, let's say, is for an American, right? Going to Mexico, it's simple. There's a lot of Americans that go to Mexico. Maybe you have family in Mexico, maybe some heritage somewhere in Latin America. So it's an easy transition. I would say every American that wants to consider going somewhere else should take a trip to Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Costa Rica. You pick your options. You need to be careful with the safety aspect of it. But I, for example, have been to very dangerous parts of Brazil. And even though I'm a little bit paranoid, I got a bulletproof taxi. I got a security private all the time. And I made sure that the steps taken were properly done for that very dangerous area. But it's not really dangerous compared to the United States. So if you look at, for example, a city like Chicago, which is an absolute disaster right now, and you look at a city like Mexico City, you're probably more likely to get murdered in Chicago than you are in Mexico City. So it's a great place to just go, spend 1 month, see, oh, the prices are half of what I'm paying back home. The passports are actually very good. Getting a Mexican or Colombian, or if you want to go even better, like a Uruguayan passport, Argentinian, they're great travel documents so you can use around the world. You could even renounce US citizenship to become something else. And they're very welcoming to your money. If you have some money, you can easily start a company literally anywhere in Latin America or invest that money, and then you get residency easily, or you show income that you can have that money there
Hmm.
generating every single month, and you get residency. So where in Europe, now they're requiring you for the real programs. Let's not talk about digital nomad visas or any of these cheapy programs in Europe. If you're really serious about getting residency and citizenship long term, you're looking at least 250,000 to 500,000 in investment. Whereas in
Hmm.
Latin America, you're looking at maybe just showing income of 5K a month. So for an American that has never stepped outside or has never gone anywhere else and gotten residency, 500,000 might seem like, yeah, do I really want 500,000 to live in Portugal? Probably
Hmm.
not.
So you'd
Whereas
say
just
the residencies are more accessible in Latin America in terms of the threshold.
for sure, and people are, I would say, it's tricky because if you go to a place like Puerto Rico, let's compare it, right? Let's say an American wants to go somewhere else to pay less taxes or to just have more freedom, and they were to go to Puerto Rico. In my opinion, being Puerto Rican, there is more anti-American sentiment in Puerto Rico. It is, let's say, more closed of a society than somewhere like Colombia would be. So it would actually be easier to go to Colombia or Chile or Argentina for an American. And you would also have to go through the Spanish transition. So you would also learn Spanish if you were moving to Puerto Rico. So it's much easier just to move to Latin America than just to go to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, yeah. Question for you, because you're an ambitious guy, Rafael, and being American, you could have gone to Silicon Valley, you could have gone to Wall Street. How did you realize that Dubai and outside the United States was the best place to be for an ambitious young American?
I would say the United States is a great place to raise money. If that's your goal, if it's to build a company that raises money, yes, it's going to be easier to raise $100 million in the United States than it is in Dubai. If you want to make a lot of revenue and profit, then Dubai is a much better place than the United States because your profits will be taxed, your money will be controlled. There's going to be more restrictions. Now, rolling out digital money, it's going to be harder to run a business. The labor laws are absolutely insane. Whereas in Dubai, you can pretty much hire whoever you want. You don't need to do any crazy labor restrictions. So it depends on what kind of business you want to run. So I want to turn Wealthy Expat into a $100 million company, and we're heading there. We're making a couple million a year right now. If I want to do that in profit and in revenue without raising money, then Dubai, as an example, is a better place to do that than the United States.
And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the episode. I learned something listening to one of your other interviews, which is that you're only like 25 or 26, which I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn.
Yeah, 26. I moved out when I was 18 on my parents' home, moved to Germany, started traveling the world, made some money online, and then I started Wealthy Expat when I was 24. And yeah, my goal is to pretty much run this company until I die because this is exactly what I want to do. I don't really want to do anything else in life.
Nice. So Rafael is the sole owner of Wealthy Expat.
Yeah, we do have some partners for crypto specifically. So there's a company called Market Spotter that invested into Wealthy Expat, and they kind of manage our crypto side.
Hmm.
I'm into crypto, but yeah, I'd rather just have somebody that does it 24 hours a day handle it. So we do have some investors, but it's not like we're Silicon Valley type investors. It's more just friends of mine.
Hmm. You do market a lot to the crypto audience. You make YouTube videos talking about Bitcoin and best places around the world for crypto people. How much of your audience and your client base is crypto people?
I would say around 60% is crypto focused because we talk a lot about crypto and we take payments in crypto. It's just very simple. It takes 5 minutes to take a 30 grand payment. And crypto is becoming more and more popular around the world. If you are a crypto millionaire, I mean, you can choose out of the buffet of countries. If you want to buy property, you can do that in Dubai, in Thailand, and anywhere else with crypto. And
Hmm.
in Latin America, you kind of need to be careful with crypto, in my experience. When I was in Brazil trying to exchange crypto for cash, yeah, that felt like I was going to get kidnapped at every point of that interaction. But it's, I would say, as yeah, as long as you know trustworthy people, I think you can also use crypto in Latin America. So you can definitely use it without problems. And a lot of our clients, they come to us, they say, I got 10 million in crypto. What can I do? Oh, we can do a lot of things. We can get a, a passport, like a Maltese passport. Then we can get residency in Colombia. Then we can also get permanent residency in Mexico. You can have literally multiple bases around the world if you just have crypto.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. Bitrefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries, including the USA, Canada, all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
One company that I admire a lot, it's called Engel and Volkers. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they
Yeah.
basically are the largest luxury real estate manager in the world. And they started in 1977, and the guy was 26 when he started. And he basically started a company just selling luxury real estate. And back then, it wasn't too popular to be a real estate agent, but now it's the biggest thing. Like if you sell $100 million property, you make 2 million on the spot. And I
Mhm.
think that's exactly what's going to happen in, let's say, 20, 30 years. The world is going to become so restricted and so unfree that this business is just going to boom. Like more Americans are going to move to Latin America than Latin Americans will move to the United States at some point.
You think so?
At some point, not in the next 5 to 10 years, with the border being open and 10,000 people flocking into the U.S. every day. But if that gets fixed, plus the U.S. becomes more taxed and restrictive, and for example, even if you're a crypto investor, let's say the SEC wants to really tackle crypto. If you take your crypto project and you run it from Bogota, nobody really cares. Or if you run it from a beach in El Salvador, like, nobody's really going to give you any problems. And more people will start realizing that.
Yeah, I think it's less crazy of a claim than it might sound, especially when you think about people retiring and how many people will be retiring on maybe US Social Security, and it won't be enough to live in the United States, and these people might find better opportunities taking that US Social Security check to Mexico or somewhere else.
That's correct. And also with inflation, that social security check will probably not be worth that much in the United States, whereas they can take that to Costa Rica and rent out a huge villa, live a nice life, whereas in the US, they would be in like a studio apartment.
Hmm. And we talked about the crypto market being kind of your biggest client base. What about retirees? Do you see that as a growing opportunity as well?
For sure, especially retirees that don't have or that have adult children. So those that, for example, their kids have already gone through high school and they're looking for somewhere else to live. It obviously depends on geographically. So you told me your biggest audience, it's like North Americans. So I'm speaking
Yeah,
to North
for sure.
Americans. But if we have, let's say, Australians, they might move to Thailand. Thailand is a great place to retire. Some
Hmm.
Americans are moving to Thailand, but Americans typically choose Latin America to move to. And I think it's definitely one of the best places to retire. One place that is popping off that I just mentioned briefly is Uruguay. I think it has a lot of potential. It's not the Switzerland of Latin America, as many people say, they call it, but it's safe, calm. For introverted people, I think it's one of the best places. Introverts, they typically want, nobody to bother them, somewhere to live nice in front of the beach. And in Spain, you kind of have that, but you also have the 50% tax and the wokeness and all these other problems. Whereas a place like Uruguay, you might be a lot more. free to do whatever you want.
Hmm. Have you seen the popularity of certain regions change over time? Like I assume Dubai is growing in popularity. Have you seen maybe a decline in Europe and a rise in Latin America?
No, I can't say that because there's always some program popping off in Europe. Right now, it's the Greek Golden Visa. So you have a 250,000 euro investment into property in Greece. You don't even need to go to Greece, and you maintain a residency in Europe for 7 years essentially. And then you can kind of apply for a Greek passport, but that's not really a real process. It's more you just apply for the residency and you never go to Greece. So I would say Europe always has some sort of program that you can go through. Latin America has more, and they tend to just open up the doors easier. But I wouldn't say, oh, Europe, there's no programs available because there's always some that pops off. And now
It's true.
Greece has 16,000 applicants pending approval. So you're talking, it's massive money going in. And these 16,000 people are they're most likely millionaires. So high net worth individuals.
Hmm. Seems to be the Balkans for the most part where the interesting opportunities are in North Macedonia, Serbia, Greece, that kind of thing.
I'm a Serbian citizen. I absolutely love Serbia, and I'm not Serbian by descent or anything. I invested into the country. I have property there. I have a team company. I love Serbia. I love the surrounding region of Montenegro. I think it's one of the most stunning places in the world. Albania, I'm not too much of a fan, but if you're an American and you want to go to Albania, they love Americans down there. And other countries, if we're talking about more open minded places that you can go to, if you're an American and you want to go somewhere for a year where you don't even need a residency permit or a visa, you can try the Republic of Georgia. There is a 365-day no visa needed regime for Americans. So you can literally just go there for a year and
Mhm.
chill out as an American.
I'm going to dive into some questions from Twitter. We put out a tweet just a couple hours ago and got a good range of responses. So I'll start hitting you with some of these. It might be a little bit out of order, but I like this one to start it off. So one user writes, as a US citizen, should I consider getting a second citizenship through parents, even though there isn't really a significant benefit to that passport? In my case, a Bolivian passport.
Well, let's do some research. I'm not entirely sure what the Bolivian passport gives you. I would get it regardless. I mean, even if somebody offered me a Kenyan passport, right, one of the worst in the world, I would still probably take it because you have a second option no matter what. So let's say for some reason the United States decide to cancel your passport and
Hmm.
you end up somewhere around the world and they cancel your passport because they thought you owed some tax. Well, now you can't move anywhere. Now you're literally stuck wherever you are right now until you settle that debt. Whereas if you have another passport, yeah, maybe the Bolivian one, as I'm checking now, doesn't give you access to Europe, but it does give you access to pretty much all of Latin America, and you can live in all of Latin America. You have access to Mexico, which is a tough country to get. You have access to South Africa, some countries in Asia, Russia. So you're open to other places that you can fly to in case something bad happens. If you can get it for free, with just a little bit of effort, might as well. So if my mom was from Bolivia and I could get a Bolivian passport, I would definitely do.
Right. So basically, you'd take anything that didn't have, you know, global taxation or military conscription or one of the other big red flags.
Right. Anything that would give me problems with banking or would not allow me to use the USD. I can't use the word right now because,
The Far
YouTube
East.
or, yeah, right. The far east of Europe, anything that might give some red flags, right? So if you show up to a banking or if you show up to a banking meeting with a Ethiopian passport, that might raise some red flags. If you show up with Iranian passport, they might think, well, this is we don't really want to work with you here, just because it has a really bad reputation. So any country that has a war, any country that has large major conflicts, I probably wouldn't take it. But in the case of Bolivia, I mean, what people think about Bolivia? Nothing. They have zero stereotypes. They might think, well, it's a poor Latin American country. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. And it fills a couple spots on the visa free thing as well.
Mm,
Sometimes you get Iran, sometimes you get Far East, stuff like that. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I'll hit you with another one. How do you manage your US tax obligations? Now, I know you said that you renounced, but we actually have another podcast where we talked about this a bit as well. Even after you renounce, there are a couple weird obligations.
Well, it depends. If you're worth a certain amount, yes, there are some obligations, and you do need to file the last year where you renounce. So
Yep.
renounce in, let's say you renounce in 2025. Well, that year of 2025 needs to be filed. So in 2026, you need to file for 2025. So you're not off the hook. You're kind of off the hook, but you still need to file the last tax year, and you still need to pay the last tax year. When it comes
Hmm.
to, let's say you continue to be a US citizen, you don't want to renounce your citizenship, which is a big deal. I mean, you're giving up the right to enter the US freely, you're giving up the right to live in the US, to own property easily. So it's a big deal. And I get it. Nobody wants to do that on a whim. What I would say is get a professional. Do not do US taxes as an expat yourself.
Hmm.
There's a lot of documents. My last tax return for 2022 is about 450 pages long. It has a lot of different things, a lot of different deductions that you can take as an American living abroad. There is a rental deduction, which the apartment that you rent abroad, the amount that you can deduct depends on the
Hmm.
city where you live. So if you live in Bogota, Colombia, or you declare that as your residency, you might only be able to deduct $10,000 of rent per year. Whereas if you live in Dubai, you might be able to deduct $50,000 because Dubai is a much more expensive place. So there's things that nobody in the space knows unless you talk to a US tax advisor that is
Hmm.
specialized in international tax law or has an international tax degree. I would definitely get some help, even if it's expensive. Just pay the guy $5,000, $6,000 to explain you literally everything, and then you don't do any problems. Because let's say you forget to report like one bank account, that'll be a $25,000 penalty from the U.S. It's some really hardcore penalties we're talking about.
Yeah. I even learned about one recently where if you renounce, even after you renounced and you're like a deemed expat or whatever, um, there's even still some stuff around like inheritance tax and a couple things as like a former US person.
Yeah, you do need to be careful with that. I'm not super versed on inheritance taxes and gift taxes after renunciation. I should be. I will be in the next couple of months. But yes,
Put it on
there
the to-do
are,
list. Yeah, there's some weird stuff.
yeah, yeah. Like if you give your, I don't know, your son is a U.S. citizen, but you just renounce, and if you give your son a bunch of money, now there might be a tax on that, even though it's a non-U.S. citizen giving tax to a U.S. but giving money to a U.S. But since you renounce, it's a different tax qualification. It's tricky.
Yeah. How you feeling overall as a non-US citizen? How's it feel to have taken the plunge?
Well, it's tough, honestly. You give up the right to go to the U.S. You give up the right to see your family whenever you want. You give up the right to go to some places. I now have a pretty good passport portfolio where I can go anywhere I want. The only four countries I can't go are the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And I've been to all of them. I don't really want to go back to any of them. But you do need to take that into consideration. Like your reputation of your passport might also be different. So, for example, let's say you renounce, in the case of this person, on a Bolivian passport. Well, when you show up to Europe on a Bolivian passport, they might say like, "Oh, this immigrant, he's gonna move here and he's gonna use the social system." You might be a multimillionaire, but in their head, they read Bolivia and they think, "Oh my God, okay, we're gonna have to deal with you." Whereas if they see U.S. citizen, they just stamp the passport and they let you go. But
Hmm.
that's all. I mean, it's all psychological. It's like if you're a different race and you show up to the border guard, he might treat you differently just because you're a different color of skin. It's literally the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's prejudice and bias. So if you're okay with that, then it's fine.
Yeah, wear a suit. um, no, but seriously, did you ever consider just waiting until you had another tier A passport? You know, maybe work towards Europe, work towards something with Canada US access, and then renounce? Because you could have maybe done
No,
something with Spain as a Puerto Rican, for example.
yeah, I debated all of that. Spain has 50% tax, and to get out of the Spanish tax system is really crazy. Also, Spain is very woke. I really don't like living in woke countries. So that's a no for me. I see the US changing drastically over the next couple of years, and I watch a lot of US news. And I think it's time now because it might be too late in maybe 2 to 3 years. Also, capital gains taxes might increase, restrictions might increase. Overall, I didn't really want to give another dollar to the United States in taxes. That's pretty much my reasoning.
Fair enough. You probably still could pursue the Spain thing. I've never seen you make a video about that, about the options for Latinos in Spain, where they have like a advanced path to citizenship. I think just 2 years.
Yes, 2 years. It really takes 4 to 5 years, to be honest. So the citizenship processing is 1.5 years,
Hmm.
plus the time that it takes you to get the residency, plus the time that it takes you to jump from residency to citizenship application. So it's not really 2 years, it's 4 years, maybe five. All that
Right.
time you need to be living in Spain, most of the time. I don't really like being in Spain too long. And you also need to pay taxes for that amount of time, which for me would be a couple $1 million. So I debated that, and I think the European Union in general is heading in the wrong direction. If you're on Twitter, you see what France is doing. I mean, France is an absolute chaos right now, and the European Union, I think, is overall heading in the wrong direction. So having an EU passport, yes, it gives you access to the US, to Canada, to these places, but it's a bit overrated in my opinion.
Yeah. I saw on YouTube that you were in Canada recently. I don't know if it's a if it's like an off limits trip, but how was that? You said something about how you were going to stay a week and you only ended up staying 2 3 days. You got out of there.
Yeah, I absolutely hated Canada. It's one of those places where I got there and I'm like, why did I come to this country? And I booked a hotel for a week. I'm like, no, 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 I can't see these people anymore. I can't interact with them. So I just left because I really like traditional family values and traditional culture. And I'm not, let's say some people call me homophobic, right? I'm not homophobic. I just don't like the indoctrination of these like LGBTQ ideas onto people. And Canada is one of the top countries. I mean, they're one of their national flags is the LGBTQ flag because it's posted on every single government building. So this country is really pushing and trying to push people into this movement, and I just cannot accept it. I see it all over the city, and I talk to my friends there in Canada, and they're constantly being fed this. It's not something for me. So I like, for example, Eastern Europe. In Serbia, you will literally never see a pride flag anywhere. The only place I saw one was like on a bracelet on some girl on the coffee shop. That's literally all. And it might not even be for pride. It might just be she liked the colors. So I like those traditional societies, even though you might sacrifice a little bit of development, a little bit of healthcare, but
Hmm.
that's what I like more.
And I noticed that you're even making YouTube videos about this theme and kind of posting content about it, saying how to escape the woke West, things like that. Was that like a conscious business decision at all? Because I know you have a whole team of YouTube guys, you have mentors who are telling you, like kind of how to turn this thing into $100 million company. And are they kind of saying like, "Yo, like calm down with that stuff," or are they like, you know what, maybe it's good to be polarizing?
Right. I debated that, and I think I would make more money if I didn't talk about this woke stuff. But I also like to be polarizing, and I like to speak to people that match my mindset around life. So I recently was talking to a billionaire who really likes my channel, and I was also talking to a diplomat in Singapore, and he's like, "Dude, your YouTube channel is amazing. Like, I also hate woke culture. I hate all these people." So I'm talking to people like a diplomat in Singapore and a billionaire, and they both agree with me, and they both watch my YouTube channel, and that's mind blowing that these people they really resonate with what I say just because I talk about these topics. So I'd rather have 10% of my audience absolutely love me and then the other 90% kind of hate me for it than just have like a 50-50 of, yeah, he's kind of nice. So, and I think you kind of have to be polarizing in the same way that, let's say, Patrick Bet David from Valuetainment, he's
Hmm.
also very polarizing, but he has 4 million followers, right? So you can still build a massive audience while still being polarized.
Yeah, that's fair. And I know that you're a big fan of Iman Gadzhi. You mentioned this in previous interviews that you helped him with his Dubai residency, and you like the way he's moving overall, and look to him for guidance on business type stuff. And I noticed that he dips into it as well, talking about the polarizing stuff. Did that give you a little bit of solace, or um, you know, say like, look, if he can do it, shouldn't be too bad for me as well?
For sure. At this point, he's a really good friend of mine. So we talk a lot about these topics and so on. And he's really gone to another level with it, with criticizing specific people in the government and criticizing a certain direction the government is going. I don't want to do that. I don't know what power these people have if they can arrest me somewhere in the world and get rid of me. So I don't want to mess with any specific people. But yes, I've seen how he's been so successful polarizing, and that has obviously inspired me a lot.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know that you and Aman have a relationship. Do you want to give us your take on friendship with Aman and how that's been fruitful?
Yeah, for sure. So we met in the lobby of a hotel like 2 years ago. We used to both live in that building and we met at the lobby. I told him I do taxes. And then he said, okay, then help me out with my taxes. So I helped him out with his taxes. And so far we've helped, I think, over 100 people that have come from him. So I'm his main service provider in Dubai. We do all his visas, we do everything. And in terms of, let's say, relationship or friendship, I mean, Iman is pretty busy. He runs a company with like over 100 people, so it's not like he'll call you 2 to 3 times a day. It's not that kind of friendship that some people have. It's more of just maybe every couple of weeks, right? You get a text, and then, oh, how are you? Have you heard about this? You heard about this new tax coming out? Blah, blah, blah. So it's sort of like that, which I appreciate. I mean, the richest people that I know, they all have friendships like that, where it's like they have maybe 2 to 3 friends that they're absolutely in touch with every day. And then everybody else is kind of like every couple of weeks. So it's not, yeah, I can't really say that we call each other all the time. We gossip or something. It's more of just every couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You mentioned another interesting thing in a previous interview where you said that all the richest people they're really into astronomy and like won't make decisions on the full moon and stuff like that. I was wondering if is Iman part of that, or do you want to expand on this like astrology idea if you're still into it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of them are. I don't want to say about Iman, but a lot of my clients that are worth like over $100 million, they closely follow astrology. And there's a quote called "Millionaires follow the data, billionaires follow astrology," or it's something like that. It's like millionaires do the work, billionaires follow astrology, and it's by a really rich person. It doesn't come to mind right now. It's a very famous quote if you Google it. And I think that's relevant. I wouldn't say you should run your life by it. So, for example, I was dating a girl who absolutely ran her life every single day by astrology. It's not like that. So, it's not like, oh, should I go outside or not based on astrology? No, there's also fact, science, and strategic planning. But when you're making really big decisions, for example, let's say that our sales are down 1 month. Well, it might be because in that certain period, it's like Mercury retrograde. So everything is sort of like breaking in society and then rebuilding back up. It might get a little bit woo woo. I don't want to get too woo woo, but yes, there is an aspect of astrology to the richest people that I know and that I work with.
Did you have to come around to this idea, or did it immediately click to you?
No, no. I basically came around to it by dating Eastern European women because they mostly believe in this. And the first one, I thought she was absolutely insane. But then when I started learning about it and I started seeing some clients were into it, and then I saw that my team, who is also a lot of Eastern European women, we tend to hire a lot of Serbians, Georgians, they all believe in it. Then I started sort of researching it more, learning a lot more about
This is fascinating. I'm sure our audience is like, wow.
it. Yeah, I mean it's separate from these topics about living somewhere else, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of living somewhere else, you've been on an absolute tear of travel lately. You've been everywhere. What's been the purpose of so much travel?
I travel to explore, and I've been to 75 countries. I want to hit 100 by the time I'm 30, so I have 4 years to do that. Next trip is to South Korea. I want to check out somewhere there, then Vietnam, Cambodia, some places in Asia, and then most likely Latin America again, Costa Rica, some places like that. So I think in order to give the best perspective in the world, I need to travel a lot. And one, I really enjoy it, but two, I can also grow the business with it because let's say I never went to Serbia at all. I would have never had a Serbian team. I would have never built something in Serbia. I would never be a Serbian citizen. And that has pushed my business a lot. And the fact that I traveled a lot and I found Dubai, then I built my whole business around Dubai. So traveling has really helped me build my business to the next level. And I want to show people the reality of the world. Like I was in Mauritius in Africa and I made a video about Mauritius. People absolutely loved it because I truly had a great experience. I thought it was one of the best countries I've ever been to in the world. I want to go again.
Wow.
And I was also in Tanzania, and Tanzania was an absolute disaster. And I made a video saying, don't go to Tanzania. And I tell people, don't go to Tanzania. So it's both to tell my clients to make videos about it, but also for personal experience.
Yeah. I noticed this because I was following you, or I am following you on Instagram. So you can plug the Instagram handle there. But that's kind of like the best way I feel to get your most your day-to-day updates.
Yeah, I actually don't post, and I learned this from Iman, funnily enough. I don't post my current location on Instagram at any point.
Hmm.
So the location that I show on Instagram might be 1 month, 2 months back at every point, just because you want to be safe. I mean, you never know who's following you. And now, when I have 100,000 people, if we extrapolate that to the world, let's say there's 1% of mentally ill or crazy people around the world. Well, I have 1,000 crazy people following me, and I don't know what those 1,000 people might do and how they're following me or every single step. And I don't know, your ex girlfriend might be following you around the world. You never know. So I try to be a bit private with it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Like a later gram, later story.
Yeah.
Like you're like, time to get out of here, leave Canada, and you're long gone.
Yeah, people message me like, "Oh, I saw your video. Are you still here?" It's like, "No, that was 3 months ago. Sorry." Yeah.
Nice. So 100K on YouTube, probably will you'll have eclipsed it. You're about 5K from it at time of recording, but you'll probably eclipse it by the time this comes out in a couple of weeks. What's the game plan for growing Wealthy Expat? How do you are you trying to grow on other platforms? I noticed you started putting more energy into the Twitter. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, now the main platform is our website. So we got we spent a lot of money on a whole new website. We have a newsletter, and we're basically going to have a news source for living abroad and expat life and taxes and everything. So it's going to be an updated news website on everything you need to know, plus all the guides that you need for your life as an expat. So if you want to check it out, when this comes out, it's wealthyexpat.com. And that's my goal, is to make a subscription out of it. So I will have a free version and then a subscription version for the higher tier stuff, like how to get citizenship in countries that nobody talks about.
Mhm.
And that's where we'll get the large valuation. So what I've learned is that really high valued companies, they all have a subscription model and they all have people that buy and buy again. And that's what I'm trying to build now. The YouTube is just for recognition. It was to build a company. It's for fun. But in order to make serious money, you need to have some sort of back end that makes money consistently.
Mhm. And how did you decide to go directly into processing the visas versus maybe like referring that out and focusing on the content creation?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, the government of Dubai reached out to me like a year and a half ago, and I made a video about why I lived in Dubai. And a member of the government reached out to me. He said, "Your videos are great. You should move people to Dubai." And I said, "Sure. Can I just refer them to you?" And he said, "No, you'll make more and you will control the process a lot more by doing it yourself." And then I actually didn't even want to do it by myself. It doesn't matter how much money I would have made. And then I started referring people to these very bad companies in Dubai that make visas and they help you buy property and so on. And they are absolutely terrible. Their support process sucks. They hire people that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And I noticed I cannot refer my clients who are very serious to these people. I'm just going to do it myself. So I noticed that our process was way better than anybody else. We could control it, we could clean it up, anything that we needed. And now we have a full fledged team that does everything for them, for the client, I mean. So we don't need to refer to anyone. So it's more of, let's say I want to start going into the Paraguayan market because a lot of people are moving to Paraguay. Well, I might start referring people, and then I might notice, well, in Paraguay, the service providers suck. People work in Paraguay time, which is very slow, and I might just build a team there and do it for clients. So that's kind of how the transition went.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. There's a question from Twitter related to this. How easy slash hard is it to become a resident in the UAE? The reports here on Twitter are honestly conflicting.
Well, there's a lot of options if you start Googling. There's a freelance visa, digital nomad visa, work seeker visa. I mean, there's a lot of things. Realistically, most of those, they're going to take too long, they're going to be too annoying, and they're going to be full of hassle. What you want to do is you either want to buy property for 200K or 550K, or you just want to open a company. You open the company, you then sponsor yourself as a CEO, and you get a 2 year visa. That is the easiest, fastest, most reliable way. If you do it with the wrong company, it might take you 6 months to do. But if you do it with the right company, it'll take you less than 30 days. So you open a company, you get yourself a job under that company, and then you can live in Dubai. And the taxes are also zero, which is amazing. But you have to make sure to pick the right agent to work with. And obviously, if you have the money to do it, you can hire us. But it's not a pitch. It's more just be very careful who you work with.
Cool. And UAE has 9% taxes or something. So you're doing this in a free zone.
Correct. Some free zones will be taxed, and you do need to be careful how you take out the money, how you make the money, who you charge, who you invoice. So it's going to be a bit trickier than it was before. But for most people, the tax won't really be a large deterrent, or it won't have a large effect on their businesses.
Okay. And do you think, is this company going to be like an active company, and do you have to kind of start like generating activity, or would this be an entity just for this purpose?
It would be an entity just for this purpose. So it wouldn't really need to make any revenue, although it's good to put money in the bank, to be honest. It wouldn't be good to ignore the bank completely and then not send any money. I mean, you want to have something going through the bank so the bank doesn't close your account, but it's just for the purpose of getting residency. It's not for actually having a company. Like in the case of Portugal, if you want to maintain your residence, you need to hire 10 people and the company needs to make revenue. In the case of UAE, no.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like how Panama used to be till they changed it.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. And Panama is a very interesting place, right? They were so popular with the Friendly Nations visa, and then they just said, no, let's not do this anymore. What I think is mainly the Chinese ruining everything for these people because Chinese really go hard. And they're like 73% of the applications in Greece. So we're talking about
Wow.
10,000 Chinese people applying for European residency. So they really F up the whole game for everybody else. And I think that's why places like Singapore, for example, they just had to increase the minimum investment to like 2.5 million because please stop bringing Chinese people. So that's what I think is happening around the world. So if you see Chinese investing in a program, it might be closed or increased or restricted.
They're some of the biggest in most programs, like all the CBIs in the Caribbean. They're one of the biggest, etc. Um, do you like have you investigated this at all in terms of maybe there's some Chinese version of Wealthy Expat on WeChat or something?
There is for sure. YouTube is banned and Google is not really used in China. So definitely Baidu. It's like the Google of China that's really used, and WeChat is also used. And there's got to be some versions of Wealthy Expat. There's a lot of service providers. The Chinese market is hard to get into. You need to speak perfect Chinese, and you really need to understand their culture. So you cannot just the way that we're speaking right now might be too rough for a Chinese person. So for a Chinese person, they might make a decision in like 6 months instead of an American making a decision, oh, I'll just move next week. So the market is very different, and they tend to not get second citizenship. They tend to get second residency. So a Chinese millionaire might go and get 10 residencies around the world, but maintain their Chinese passport, which is very interesting. So they might have residency in Australia, residency in Europe, residency in Singapore, residency in the US, but still maintain their Chinese citizenship, which is, it's a very weird phenomenon.
It's pretty wild. Hey everybody, hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information. Switching gears a little bit, this is a very open-ended question, but I thought love to see where your creative mind goes with this. This is also from Twitter. Which is the best place to start a company and get tax residency? And then in parentheses, should be cheap as well.
Oh, well, you're asking for easy, fast, and cheap. That's
Only two of the three.
yeah, you got to tell me, well, fast and easy, Dubai. It's not cheap. Cheap, the problem is there's not really a place where you can start a company cheaply. If you start a cheap company, it's going to cost you a lot later on. Like if you start I recently had a guy from St. Kitts and Nevis, and he came to me and he's like, I want you to promote St. Kitts and Nevis as the best place in the world to open companies. I'm like, I have citizenship in St. Kitts and Nevis. I do not recommend anyone open a company in St. Kitts and Nevis because it's cheap, but it's very expensive long term. It's just a lot of hassle to run a St. Kitts and Nevis company. So you don't want to go for the cheap option. If you want tax residency somewhere that is cheap, then get tax residency somewhere like a Georgia or Malaysia or Costa Rica that are tax-free on foreign sourced income. So if you earn money from outside, let's say you earn from the US and you have clients in the US, and you bring that money into Costa Rica, or you never even bring the money, you just spend the money in Costa Rica, then it's not taxed, right? So that's a good way of basically guaranteeing tax-free life is by using countries that where foreign income is not taxed. I wouldn't really go and start a company in Costa Rica. So I would change that person's mindset a little bit. And I would say, don't look at where you can start a company, just look at the tax laws around the world.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, Rafael, that most of the plans you build for people involve the UAE? Or do you build a significant amount of plans that don't involve the UAE as well, and maybe they involve a different territorial tax country, for example?
We work with many countries around the world. Just Dubai for really high net worth individuals makes a lot of sense. But you could, for example, get residency in Mexico and then have like a Thai elite visa, live in Thailand, have your tax residency in Cyprus by spending 2 months a year in Cyprus. So we have a lot of clients, and we also have private clients that pay us a certain fee, and then we just work with them through multiple programs. So they might get two citizenships. So now we have a really rich person. He's actually from the UAE, he's Emirati, but he wants to have residency in multiple different countries. He wants to invest in a bunch of different places. And he hired us, he just paid us one specific fee, and we're helping him with everything. So we don't just deal with Dubai. Dubai is the most popular place for high net worth individuals. That's just why we are there and why I had my residency in Dubai. But we deal with many other countries.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So are you finding that most people are stacking multiple residencies, or do you find that people, they just want to get one, keep it simple, one and done? Or are most people like, give me 3, give me 4, give me this, give me something in Latin America, something on this continent, some over there, that type of thing?
Yeah, I think most people, they have one or two in their mind and they have others that they want to do later. That's my approach. So typically we'll tell a client, okay, get that Dubai residency and get the St. Kitts passport. And then after you do that, then with your Dubai bank account, maybe pay for another residency around the world. Then we could get Portuguese residency and so on. So it's more of a step-by-step process. So usually I have one or two goals in mind. And depending on your goal, right? So there's people that come to us and they're like, I want to do 5 countries. And I ask them, what's the goal? And like, well, I just want to have second options. And in reality, they don't need those 5 options. They might need one or two because let's say if they're from Canada, they don't really need a second citizenship. They just need second residences to avoid the tax in Canada. So also depending where they come from.
That makes sense. So you try to narrow it down a little bit, but you're but at the same time, you'll help people who want to do a whole bunch as long as they have a coherent strategy.
And the money to do it for sure.
Makes
Hey,
sense.
it's
What
expensive
about
to go
people
abroad. Huh?
actually? What about people related to actually having the money is actually kind of pulling the trigger and saying yes? Because I've in this industry, there's a lot of window shopping and people who just want information and information, but they never really take action. Do you have any ways that you incentivize people to take action, or or just get rid of the window shoppers?
Well, you can't really because this is an industry with very big decisions in life. So people are moving somewhere else or moving their kids somewhere else. So you can't really sell. It's not like selling a course, right? Where you can push them like, oh, buy now until next week. I have a discount. It's not like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there, you cannot force sell someone into moving to another country. It takes time. And let's say you were to start the same business as me and just call it like rich expatriate or whatever, then it'll take you at least 6 months to get a client. Because first of all, people need to trust you. Second of all, people take a lot of time in making this decision. And third of all, in order for you to learn all the options, it'll just take you a lot of time to research and everything. So it's just the nature of the business. It'll take a lot of time for people to make a decision. Yeah.
I think one of the things that makes it a bit tricky to automate is that everyone's situation is a little bit different. And, there's one price for single applicants, there's one price for couples, there's a different price for families. So you can't really set one price for a particular service. And then people just have all these different variables in terms of, uh, the residencies and citizenships that they have and how they generate income, et cetera. So it is very boutique. There's definitely a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
I was wondering, speaking of kind of managing the boutique company side of things, you talk specifically a lot about taxes. Like you talk almost more about taxes than about, I don't know, like freedom or things like, you know what I mean? And so people have to really trust your expertise in terms of lowering their taxes. Do you try to work with like a major accounting firm or someone like a third party that signs off on things, or how do you draw confidence in your results?
Always. We always have a US tax advisor, Canadian tax advisor, everything. We do not give tax advice. We only give tax optimization opinion, and we bring a tax advisor that can then give the advice. So if you're a US citizen and you come to me and you say, what should I do with my taxes? I say, let's talk to a US tax advisor because this is very serious stuff. But if we make a mistake, like it's literally a felony to do that. So yes, it's always backed by an advisor.
Sweet, good to know. Related question about health and travel insurance. People ask a lot about this for expats and nomads, and I'm particularly interested as a former U.S. citizen if that maybe reduced your options for international health coverage, or how's that been going for you?
No, you can get, for example, in Dubai, health insurance, and then you can also get Safety Wing, which is an insurance that you can get online for any country around the world. So there's
Yeah.
definitely options, and I mean, knock on wood, nothing bad has happened, but like healthcare is not super expensive in all the countries. Like I went to a place in Serbia because Serbia's a cheap place, but as an example, I broke one of my teeth and it was like $15 to fix it. Whereas in the US, it would have been like, I don't know, 1,000, right? So a US citizen might go somewhere else and think, oh, if I break my leg, I'll need to spend 30 grand. Yeah, back home. But in Colombia, it might be like $200. So
Mhm.
it's also not so expensive in other places. Yeah,
Okay, so you maybe get a private health insurance where your kind of full-time base is, and then a secondary coverage as like a travel insurance.
exactly.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Sweet. Another question was, which low tax country has the best parks and walkable cities?
Ooh, that's a good one. Uh, Walkable cities. Yeah, parks is definitely not Dubai. I would say I would say Portugal. Yeah, I got to give that to Portugal. Mexico is not technically low tax if you live there full time, but I would say Mexico is also really walkable, really beautiful, and I mean, there's a lot of places with that description. I wouldn't say they're all low tax. It's tricky. They're mainly foreign sourced income is not taxed, right? So a place like Costa Rica, which is very beautiful, the education is a little bit less quality than other places, but if you want somewhere for nature, Costa Rica or Malaysia could be a good option. And their foreign income is not taxed regime helps you basically pay zero tax. But ooh, that's a tricky question. I would say if I had to choose a country in the world, I would say Portugal because it is relatively low tax if you take advantage of the tax exemptions. It's extremely beautiful, has a lot of parks, and the education is really good. Yeah.
People love the walkable cities, man. I think
Yeah,
you probably appreciate it too as an American that's moved to the Far East and stuff.
for sure, for sure.
I'd love to ask you a little bit about the duality of Latin America versus Eastern Europe, and I think like maybe I'm just gonna diagnose you, Rafael, but I think like it's like an opposites attract type of thing where you're very used to Latin America, so maybe you are drawn towards the Eastern Europe stuff just because it's different, but it's still the same vibe of like traditional and whatnot. Was that would that be
Sure,
accurate?
that's very accurate. You're usually drawn to things that are very different to you because you want to experience something else. So, as an American, it makes sense to go to Latin America just because it's new. But I'm Latino, so I came over here to Eastern Europe and to Dubai because it's so different. So yes, I would agree with that 100%.
One you have talked about though is Chile. Do you want to tell us about what excites you about Chile and maybe what you have going on there?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's been an increase in crime and illegal immigration into Chile, but I think it's still an amazing place. It's a great passport. It's very developed. The healthcare is great. People in general don't only speak Spanish, so they speak English as well. And the city of Santiago is absolutely stunning. Has a lot of really beautiful buildings and apartments. So overall it has a lot going for it. But unfortunately, there has been a lot of illegal immigration and people are worried, especially in the capital, that this is going to cause a lot more crime. So it is getting worse, but I still love it.
And are you potentially recommending Chile for, let's say, former US citizens who are looking to get ESTA access and get US visa free access? Basically, would that be like one of the big benefits of Chile?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And if you want to have a second passport that is really good around the world, but it's not like a European one or it's not an extremely high tax one, Chile would be a great option.
I think the big question I would have around Chile, and I'd love if you could answer this, would be people generally know that there's like a 3 year tax exemption for the first 3 years, but it takes 5 years to work towards citizenship. And I think you have to spend 6 months there, and I think you might have to be a tax resident. Can you renew the tax breaks after the 3 years, or what do you do in those 2 or 3 years where you're working towards citizenship, but you're not covered by that first exemption?
Correct. That's a question for my Chilean expert. I wouldn't be able to answer that, so I'm not at that point where I need to renew that. But I will get back to you on that. I'll post it on Twitter.
Okay, there's a video idea how to
Exactly.
work towards Chilean citizenship in a low tax way.
For sure.
Do you have any future plans for Latin America, other countries in the region, or just doing other things there in general? I mean, tell us a little bit more about how you think about Latin America.
I think it's a great place. I'll be visiting it in, I would say, winter. I'm planning to be there for a while. Just the time zone, because I have a lot of clients in Dubai and the time zone kind of messes up the whole thing. But I definitely have plans, and especially when it gets really cold everywhere else in the world. Dubai and Latin America are the two best places, or Asia are the three
Mhm.
best places to be. So I'll definitely spend a lot more time, do a lot more research, talk to experts on the ground, and so on.
And I assume you speak Spanish like 100% fluently. Would that be obvious to say?
Yeah, it's my native language. So yes.
Yeah. Would you ever consider doing like a Spanish language channel or expanding into that audience at all?
I'm working on it. We are going to have a Spanish website with all the information in Spanish. The problem is Latin American people typically just want to go to the US, and then Spain isn't a big enough market for us. So that's why we focused on English.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think I my audience would just watch you in Spanish just to practice their Spanish and get some good info out of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I agree.
Have you considered doing a podcast? Because I feel like if you did, yours would instantly be bigger than mine. Of course, I feel like you'd have a great podcast.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing it right now. We're doing a lot on YouTube, so I might take you up on that offer and do the podcast as well for sure.
I noticed that some of the other, sovereign citizen type YouTube channels, they were just not really getting into the details about how things work, and you were still getting into like the details of like, okay, you're going to need this document and then that document, and here's the minimum and here's the dollar amount, and like that sort of level of specificity I think was lacking in a lot of other people's content, and you were bringing that specificity to YouTube kind of for the first time.
I agree for sure. And that's something that we try to be different than everybody else. Just be as specific, as detailed as possible. Definitely.
Yeah, because people want the meat and potatoes. Like I think when you make kind of just like freedom oriented videos or polarizing videos, I think that stuff's cool, but never lose the informational, like very info specific videos, because I think there's always got to be an element of that because people love that, and it's hard to get that information because people want to be able to trust in an expert like yourself.
Definitely. I agree
Because
100%.
you're probably the same as me, where you said you've been interested in this stuff 10 years ago. What was it like back then? Maybe you can tell people what it was like researching residency programs and trying to connect with lawyers and stuff like that 10 or even 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, I was 15, so I didn't have much. But when I was interested in this stuff, like obviously the Caribbean programs were really popular, and I thought Caribbean citizenships were shit, and compared to my U.S. passport, so I wasn't really open minded to that. And I think a lot of Americans they look at these other passports and they think, oh, why do I need to have some other bad passport? And it takes time for you to understand why you need it. So I see myself in that position, and I think, yeah, other people feel the same.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Who were some of your early influences in this space?
Well, I have to give credit to Nomad. That was one of my top influences, and other people that have been talking about it. So let's say I follow one guy called Drew Binsky. He's been to pretty much every country in the world. He lives in the Philippines. So he's talked about living in other countries, traveling to all countries, and listening to a lot of different opinions, like not just super rich expat focused people, but also just travelers that want to experience other countries. I watch a lot of I really can't remember their name now, but it's a group of guys. They travel a lot. They also got the St. Kitts passport. Yes Theory, that's what they're called. And
Yes,
they have a
theory.
YouTube channel about traveling as well. So just mainly being exposed to a lot of travelers and open minded people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know who Drew Binsky is. Do you think that that influenced your style a little bit? Because I noticed some of your videos were a lot more outside than some of the other guys who are just kind of in like corporate offices. And you're a lot of your videos, you're like outside, like in the main plaza type of thing. And maybe that's a Drew Binsky influence.
That's an Upton influence. There's a guy called Upton. I know him in person, and he makes videos about different countries, and they absolutely blow up. So he made a video about Korea. It blew up. He made a video about Luxembourg. it blew up. So he makes a lot of videos that he does with just his GoPro, and they do extremely well, and it's commentary on a country. So it was
Hmm.
mainly from him, and I met him in Bali, and he said, "Yeah, just do videos like that; they'll blow up." And yeah, they do very well.
I love the fact that you're outside. It really, like, what was it like in the early days before you built your team? Because now your videos are super professional. It's almost like you're creating a TV show. So there was clearly a creative process that occurred in the past 2 years, where maybe in the early days you were maybe editing your own videos yourself, and then you've kind of professionalized it over time.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to edit the videos myself. Now I have a whole team. So that process was mainly just making money off of the business. When I started making money off the business, I hired a YouTube editor and started getting better. So, and that's a natural process. You make money from the business, you reinvest into it. And I tend to reinvest a lot of what I make.
Okay, cool. Upton, that's a good one. Any other I gotta check this guy out. Any other early influences that people people are always interested in this, like where did your kind of style come from?
I would say I've been doing YouTube for a long time. So it's a combination of watching other people, but also just myself doing videos for like 5, 6 years about drop shipping, about travel, about money. So it's more about I've just found my style through more than 5 years of doing it.
Interesting. So you were making videos for drop shipping before
Yeah. I used to run
on a
a
different
channel
channel.
about yeah, yeah. That was my business.
Damn. Has anyone dug those up on you recently?
Yeah, people say like, why don't you do drop shipping videos? Why are you just doing these expat stuff? But that was yeah, I was mainly just doing it for the money. Like I wanted to make a lot of money, so I did drop shipping. I made money from that, and then I taught drop shipping. I made money from that, and now I'm doing what I really love.
Is the channel still up?
Yeah, you can type my name, Rafael Cintron. The videos are really old, but they're still up. Yeah.
It's cool. Well, that definitely contributes to just how people think you're older than you are. Like I definitely thought you were in your 30s, and I
Sure.
think part of that is just the presence of having good on-camera presence and feeling comfortable on camera.
For sure. 100%.
Wow. As we get to wrapping up, would love to maybe hear any kind of like wacky behind the scenes stories that you might have, either of a um, maybe a client that you helped through a unique situation, or maybe opportunities that have arisen through this business or through the YouTube channel. Does anything come to mind in terms of like fun, quirky stories?
Yeah, I would say I got the opportunity to do a lot of different programs around the world. Well, I've gotten the offer to do some programs. So I got the offer to do like a South African passport for $30,000. I got the offer to do like a Mexican passport for like $25,000. So I've gotten some very strange offers because obviously talk about the space. And many people around the world they say like, "Oh, would you like this passport? Just pay us 25 grand." Or Romania for like $10,000. Those have been like I really want to test one of those out, but I know they're not legal, so I can't. And I would just love if somebody comes to me and they're like, "Hey, let's test one of these programs just for fun. I don't care if it's illegal. I'll never use the passport. Pay some lawyer 5 grand and see if we get something out of it." Because I don't think they're scams. I think obviously the passport isn't a legitimate way to get the passport, but it's a real biometric passport. So somehow they got it. And I would like to go through one of these programs. I just haven't because I just like to do everything legally.
Wow, I'm surprised by that answer. That was very open and honest answer.
Yeah.
I like this theme of you get a lot of offers now, and even me too, like because almost every country in Latin America is accessible, and sometimes I'm just like, huh, should I get this one? Should I get that one? It's kind of interesting. Do you feel do you have other programs that are tempting you?
For sure, I would say Thailand Elite Visa. I'm working on that. Residency here in the Far East of Europe. I'm definitely working on that. And other countries like Namibia, I'm looking at it for residency. So there's
Mm-hmm.
some places that people are not really talking about that I'm thinking and researching actively. Yeah, first some examples.
Absolutely. What do you think have been some of your biggest epiphanies having gotten into this industry? You probably had one idea of how things worked 2 years ago, or you had some idea of the landscape 2 years ago, and maybe your mental model of the investment migration landscape has changed over the past 2 years. If so, how?
I would say, how has my mindset changed over the last?
Mindset or like mental model in terms of like how the industry works or like what's important to people or what the best programs are. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's certain programs that everybody wants, right? So for taxes, it's Dubai. For passports, it's the Caribbean. For residency, it's like Portugal or other places like Greece. So I think there's a bunch of different programs. Like there's like residency in Belize, but the amount of people doing it is so little that it doesn't really make much sense to do it. And I think people get confused. Like they think, oh, there's residency in St. Lucia and it looks really beautiful. Where okay, you can do that, but it's pretty much not conducive to anything. Where you can just get citizenship in St. Kitts and have the exact same results. So I think people get confused by so many different options when there's really like 8 or 10 that truly matter.
Interesting. So you think the big ones the industry tends to focus on, the big 8 or 10 kind of are the big ones?
Yeah, they're the ones you should focus on for sure.
Yeah. Very cool. I think you've been very generous with us. You calling in all the way from the Far East, and us here in the Eastern time zone. So we're glad that the stars aligned. And yes, that
For
was
sure,
a
man.
call back to the astronomy section of the podcast.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope people got value from this. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them on Twitter.
Absolutely. And I know we bounced around a lot of different topics, but hopefully we covered a lot of gems that people were interested in hearing from you. I'd love for you, Rafael, just take this moment to direct the audience to wherever they can learn more about you.
For sure, go to wealthyexpat.com. That's our website. It includes all the guides, blogs, and everything. And go to YouTube and type in Wealthy Expat. You'll find everything about us. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and so on. But I don't post as much as I do on the main two platforms.
Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, our guest today was Rafael from the Wealthy Expat. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.